on this episode of The Strange Medicine of Alice Strange. On the note of having a moment that feels amazing, you know, the I could do this forever if this is it. And I think something I've myself been chewing on lately is it is kind of hard to recognize that some of the best moments of our lives are very fleeting. But at the same time, I've recently come to the understanding, the peace within myself that makes it all the more beautiful. That just because something ends does not mean it was any less wonderful and amazing. And the fact that it's fleeting and very temporary can be very beautiful.
It never occurred to me that they end. All this stuff is coming back from the previous ages as we're rising to a higher age from descending Dwapara Yuga. There's a descending cycle that changed at 500 AD. Now the ascending cycle, and these things are coming back. How are they mysteriously coming back? Well, when you think of it this way, it's not mysterious at all. It's very natural. So I think this is the most important aspect of it. And when I understood this part, then everything came together, and that I saw that what I was doing with astrology and enneagram, for that matter, what was being given to me was a way to look at them in a Dwapara Yuga way of a higher vibration, that rather than limiting us, they help to define us in order to be able to let go of the limitations. Self-compassion for me is fourth house. People that have an empty fourth house have trouble with self-compassion, and you do. So that's what you have to learn, is self-compassion and vulnerability. I think without trying to analyze you, I think that there's a vulnerability that's beneath that. Vulnerability doesn't have an on-off switch. Okay, so I think it's a little pre-vulnerability. It's a controlled vulnerability. I'm saying that there's a bit of a controlled vulnerability that comes at 32, 34, 36, when you realize I wasn't really that vulnerable. I was running a game of the story of vulnerability, not vulnerability.
Welcome, seekers, to The Strange Medicine of Alice Strange, the podcast where modern science meets with what lies beyond what we can see. Here, we delve into psychology, spirituality, science, and the occult. Each episode will explore the bigger questions of existence, the nature of the soul, our internal world, and how we can understand them through spirituality and magic. This podcast is a sanctuary for the soul. Alongside science and spirituality, we also learn the power of compassion and the magic of extending kindness to others. For in the act of giving, we receive. In the act of teaching, we learn. This is a journey into the depths of the mind as well as the heart, where every lesson is a step toward oneness, every insight a bridge to understanding, and every act of kindness a spell that transforms the world. So join me, Alice Autumn Strange, on this journey of self-discovery, scientific wonders, ancient knowledge, and finding the strange medicine within yourself. Welcome, seekers, to Strange Medicine with Alice Strange. Today, I am so excited to share this interview with you I did with Indra Rinzler. Indra has an amazing story. He's had over 50 years in his spiritual path. He's traveled the world, lived in a spiritual community in California for 20 years, is a Vedic astrologer, works with the enneagram, and now does detailed and moving readings to help people who want to learn to better understand themselves. And in this interview, I put it all out there, and we discuss my own astrology and enneagram personality type. Indra also has so much wisdom to share about how to use astrology, living in the moment, self-compassion, how astrology and enneagrams are connected, and how we aren't actually in the age of Aquarius. He has also generously offered each of you, every listener, a free astrology chart and enneagram test. The information on how to get this is below wherever you're listening to this podcast. And Indra offers amazing readings at a really good price, so check out his website below if you would like to get some personal wisdom from him. And if this is your first time seeing me, I'm Alice Autumn Strange. I'm a psychic, energy worker, and coach, and I am passionate about assisting others through difficult times. I healed myself from disabling mental illness through combining psychology and spirituality. And if you'd like to learn more, follow my channel or send me a message and we can talk. And the last thing before we jump in, if you haven't heard yet, I'm offering an oil blend available for pre-order right now with just a few left. I'm also offering a couple more sessions of rewriting soul contracts at a very discounted price. The pre-order and submission forms are down below, super simple to fill out. I know the links weren't working at one point. It's fine, it's fixed. Go check it out before they all run out. And take care, love yourself, and remember, you don't have to do it alone. Let's get into the interview. Thank you so much, Indra, for coming and joining me today on my podcast. How are you today?
I am good. I'm really happy to be here, Alice, and to explore the unknown with you
Yes,
today.
yes. Exploring the unknown, a passion of mine. So, for our audience, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I've been on the spiritual path more than 50 years. The modality, what I always wanted to do was to be an astrologer. And it was only in the last 10 years that finally achieved that. And it was 40 years, 40 plus years of preparing for the ripening of being an astrologer and sharing with people spirituality through the formation of the planets.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you have such a beautiful life story, just a wonderful life story. And I would love if you could share a little bit about what got you here.
What got me here? Well, I mean, what didn't get me here? Where is here? Here is as an astrologer. I think there's a teaching in India called nete nete, not this, not that. And I think what got me here is the process of having like you, because I've seen your chart, that you have this vision of what it is, and it's a shoots and ladders game of getting there. You understand shoots and ladders? Is that
Oh, yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
okay? So it's a shoots and ladders game of getting there. And so, I mean, which got me there? Was it the shoot or was it the ladder? And it's like it's both. I lived in a spiritual community for 20 years. It taught me about discipleship, having a master, having an Indian master, and discipleship, and then it became a time to graduate and to leave. And I'm going to use the words "do my own thing," which is not really what it was or is, but that's what we call it.
Right.
It's to clear away to, all that is our own in terms of our limitations and stories and mental ideas, to find out that what did I just say? To do my own thing is to connect with the cosmos and the spirit and actually give up doing my own thing. That is doing my own thing, is to give up the limitations of the physical plane. So that has been a continual step. I started traveling. I left the spiritual community that I lived in for 20 years, and I separated. My wife and I separated, and the kids were grown, pretty much all in the same year. And I started traveling the world, and so I spent. Well, I still travel. Just bought my ticket to India for the winter last week, but I had an import business, and I was traveling the world, buying tchotchkes Moon. I'm looking at your neck there. The moon, the crescent moons, and I bought Fatima hands, which is like now so trendy. I was bringing them back in like 2005 when I went to Turkey the first time, and something like that, or 2004. It was really an incredible time. And then that ended. I didn't really. It was, I was old, and it wasn't that I was so old that I ran out of energy, but this other thing wanted to come along, and this other thing, it was finally time for the astrology, and so I spent 2 or 3 years of intense study, and then started doing this, and have been so blessed by having being given other modalities to include with astrology, or not necessarily not astrologically based, but other ways of giving readings in order to find a holistic a place to give people. The short story is family dynamics. If it's a family issue, your own chart, your own strengths and weaknesses of your own chart based on that. The enneagram, which is the core triggers. The wheel of totality, which are the blind spots. The location astrology, which gives us the power of place, and how place can help us, or how it holds us back, and we make a story about it. And then the Navamsha, the crown jewel of readings, which is who we become at 60. It's who we become, which isn't really, lived until the 60s, and so it's a uh, dynamic teaching, in essence. It's taught me uh, 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 that is can change people's lives in a few hours of reading.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think it is true that one reading really can change a lot in a person's life. I've experienced that, and I've done those for people as well, and it's a beautiful feeling, to just see such a change from a simple moment.
I like to say that the when the reading was from me, it wasn't as good as through me.
Agreed, agreed. Oftentimes we are simply the vessel, the messenger. Absolutely. And so, with all of the traveling you've done and all of the amazing locations and things you've seen, what would you say is your favorite place? Just like the most close and near and dear to your heart.
Okay, my favorite place is the moment.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So it can turn any place into your favorite place by being in the moment. So as far as places, the what the moment is where I like to be, but that physical plane places that I've been to 56 countries. I got to travel anywhere in the world, really, to buy fun things. And so third world marketplaces, I traveled the world by marketplaces. But as far as the experiences I had, the places that I talk about would be Mongolia, where I spent a summer, and we went out to the countryside, of which there's only, I think, one paved road in the country, and so the country, we went to the countryside for 3 or 4 nights and slept in yurts. And during the day, I went to a place. They took me to a place. They took us to a place. A young woman was traveling with me, and was on the trip. And they took us to a place where there was holy water from the ground that was sparkly and freezing cold. And then we sleep in this yurt in the summer village. And I read in my book, I'm reading about Genghis Khan, who was really uh, amazing culture, because they ruled the world. It's the biggest empire the world has ever seen, by people who were considered to be barbarians, but yet had a deep culture, a deep spirituality, shamanism, that had no written language and wasn't industrialized in any way. But so it was rather amazing. So I was in this place where so I was reading this book about Genghis Khan, and it said that he took his family to this very place that we were at during the day.
Oh, wow.
And we're in a summer camp, and he was in a summer camp, and it was like I was in the same place as Genghis Khan 800 years later, and like it was, you know, and you had a horizon that you could barely see the ends on the east-west, but the stars in the north-south also went to the horizon because it was so flat there. And the other place I like to talk about was Ethiopia. Ethiopia was the Ethiopia. I kind of went to Ethiopia because I'd been to Jamaica, which I didn't particularly like, but I had read about the Rastafarians, which I was not really anything to do with that, but I thought that was kind of interesting, and it started in Ethiopia. So I went to Ethiopia, and it was like I thought that it wasn't there yet because it was so in areas run down. But I come to find out that it already had been there for a long time. That Lucy, the oldest human remains, the Lucy Museum is there, and the supposedly, and you may be more up on this stuff than I am, but supposedly when the Ark of the Covenant was pulled out from Israel or whatever, stolen or whatever it was. I don't know the story, but they got to Egypt and they were at the Nile and they said, well, where can we put it? And somebody had the idea, well, how about the headwaters of the Nile? The headwaters of the Nile is the highlands of Ethiopia, which I didn't get to. I only got to Addis Ababa, which was okay. That's as far as I got this life. But the highlands where they supposedly the Ark of the Covenant is, it's just a very magical place, being so so ancient. And the Ethiopian, if you ever had an Ethiopian traditional meal where they have the 3-foot bread and the food is dumped in the middle and everybody eats the bread, scoops the meal, the vegetables or the meat in the middle, sitting on their stool with the thing in the center at table height. And it's a very a communal kind of a way of living. So
and it does seem that a lot of what you do and a lot of what you have done has to do with community and connection. Would you say that's correct?
Well, yeah, I would say that that's true. I when we were starting, the first thing that I did as an adult was to start a commune in 1970. And at that time, the desire to live in community was incredibly strong. And when my wife and I got together in the early 70s, it's something we tried to do, and it never kind of worked out. But I ended up moving to this spiritual community or ashram in the late 70s and lived there for 20 years. And my feeling now is that that community is everywhere, that I don't want to put up the borders. I used to say that I learned that I would cross a lot of, in 56 countries, I crossed a lot of borders. And it was passport on one side and passport on the other. And I found that man makes a lot of borders, but I found that the spirit of it was that there aren't really any borders. And so I don't think so much in terms of formal community as much as I do is that everything is a community.
What a beautiful sentiment. What a beautiful sentiment. And what would you say is the most attractive part of community for you?
Well, I hadn't ever thought about that. The first word that comes to mind is participation. That I don't want the exciting part to be the result. because that's not very satisfying. So I think it's participation. It's that old, with we just finished the Olympics with everything on the gold medal and medaling. Three people get the medals and everybody else gets the work harder. It gets the attaboy and attagirl. But the thing is, the old elementary school, the participation medal, that I think is that we can participate, and that my participation doesn't have to have a role. It doesn't have to particularly be heard, but just to be able to participate in it in a very I don't know. Again, the free will. I just saw you just had. I didn't listen to your free will podcast, but you had free will recently in a free will sort of a way. If there is a free will, the participation in the way that the world can is open to how I can serve. That's the free will part of it.
Absolutely. I love that answer. And so, with a lot of things that I've watched that you've done, your interviews,
Wow.
you share so much just deep wisdom. And some of them feel like small, simple little facts, little tiny pieces of information that are just so impactful. And I think something that is not really talked about is that sometimes a simple phrase, a simple understanding can really change your mindset or the trajectory of your life. Is there anything for you personally that you learned or read that was a simple, small little thing that really changed you?
It's hard to, you think back over a lifetime. I do. I don't know if this really answers it, but it's a fun story. I was in New Zealand. The one time I went to New Zealand, and I traveled around. I rented a car on the North Island, and I traveled around for a week, and I went like 300 kilometers, which was 200 miles in a week. Not very far, and it was really wonderful to see the different countryside. And on the Friday, I went to the other side I worked my way over across the top and then to the other side coming into the home stretch, coming back to a circle to drop off the car before going to the South Island. And so on Friday, I was coming down the highway, which was 3 or 4 kilometers from the coast. And so then I decided to go to the coast for the night, and I found a bungalow that you could rent that was like a camping bungalow for like $15 or $20. That was very reasonable and really, really nice. I don't remember whether it was bathroom. I think there was a communal kitchen, and I think maybe you had your bathroom. It was pretty nice. So I settled in and I walked the area, which was at the coast, and I walked it a little bit, and then I went on a big hike, and I got to a bench overlooking the ocean, and I sat on this bench, and the sun was setting in the west because I was on the west side over Australia, 1,000 miles to Australia, and I thought that. If I never get off this bench, if this is it, I'm okay. That this is enough. That this moment and this being and not the being, my being, but the being. If this is it, this is a good time. And I sat there with that for a few moments, and then I got up and went to dinner. After, I don't know, maybe another half hour, and then it got dark and it was time to go to dinner. But that was a moment that was with me. But I had a client. Well, go ahead. I was going to tell you another story. That I had a client this week. I'll tell you the short story. I had a client this week, and I said to her, she had emotions, She was having issues with her emotions and judging the emotions. And I don't even know what I said to her, but I said something to her about hunger, that you don't know what that hunger means, that you don't know that doesn't mean meal hungry, that doesn't mean you're deprived, it doesn't mean you're never going to get food. You just it's the feeling of hunger. And she brought came back to it 2 or 3 times. I had absolutely no idea what I said, or what that's was said through me. But she came back to it 2 or 3 times. It's like, wow, I don't have to buy into the emotions. I don't know what they mean. I don't know anything. I'm free. And it was like that was. I think it was last week that happened, and that wasn't my story, but I participated in that. So
Hunger. I do like that. On the note of having a moment that feels amazing, the I could do this forever if this is it. And I think something I've myself been chewing on lately is it is kind of hard to recognize that some of the best moments of our lives are very fleeting, very fleeting. But at the same time, I've recently come to the understanding, the peace within myself that makes it all the more beautiful. That just because something ends does not mean it was any less wonderful and amazing. And the fact that it's fleeting and very temporary can be very beautiful.
it never occurred to me that they end.
Okay. Okay.
The experience of it, the moment of it, of the experiencing of it, the birth of it ends.
I
But
love that. I love
but
that so much.
the experience doesn't for me doesn't end. I'm still in New Zealand sitting on that bench.
That's beautiful. I love that. I'm going to keep that one with me.
But I should say that the idea that it ends is incredibly painful, and it is the cause of a tremendous amount of human suffering. That disconnection, that abandonment, that aloneness, never again.
Yes. And
It's terrible.
I think a lot of people have a hard time really reining in their thoughts and their emotions, kind of keeping them in check. And I think if you can do that and hold on to those parts that were amazing, maybe a memory, a person, a thing gets spoiled later on, but being able to hold on to the essence, the energy, that moment living forever inside you, I think that can be a difficult place to come to, where you can let go of the things. And that's something you talk about a lot, letting go. Letting go of the painful part of
Yeah.
a memory and holding on to the things that serve you. What do you have to say
Well,
on
I
that?
I think my attitude of it is that it just takes a bit of time. That's not the first week. That I mean, if it's the first week, then you've already done some work somewhere. That takes a lot of maturity to get to. It takes a lot of experience to get to, and time, not even time as much as just honing in. It's a lot of um, error, not error, but false step. To get there, you got to fall down a few times. Not that falling down is the I'm using that as a slang, but you got to get slapped around a little bit, or you just don't get it. That's a hard something to grab onto. It just takes a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It does. And as you said, time is irrelevant. Time doesn't really no one's journey looks the same as another's, but it is that
Yeah.
learning from the mistakes and the falling down that makes those things happen. So something you talk about a lot is the four doorways to consciousness. And I would
Okay.
love to cover this. I'm so interested in this.
Sure. The four doorways to conscious living. This. This has been a really good teaching. I like to say at the end, people say, well, this is great information, Indra. I'm so appreciative. Now, what the heck do I do with it? So I like to say, well, this is what you do with it, and um, so the reading. So what do you? This is what you do with it, and it being what? It being the lessons of life, it being the process of deepening your experience, it being the waking up to the self. And so the first doorway is you have to learn to observe. You have to you have to watch your own thinking and behavior. You have to watch your reaction to other people's thinking and behavior. You need to watch your reaction in situations, watch your reactions to other people's reactions in situations. I call it you need to get out of the movie of your life into the audience. We need to create an objectivity about what's happening in our life, that we can't be when we're the star of it, then we are not, we can't get out of it. We need that objectivity, perspective. Close one eye and you can hardly tell, you can't tell distance. Okay, so we need to open both eyes in order to get a perspective. Both eyes, maybe the both eyes is really the third eye, but without going into that. So learning to observe. That's the first. Is uh, to get some perspective on our own stories, and then the second doorway is to let go and release what doesn't serve. Okay, and I like to give this quote: letting go involves being aware of a feeling. So and so there are some people who are really aware of their feelings, and they're good on that. But there are a lot of people also who aren't very aware of their feelings, and they need to become aware of their feelings. Then you let it come up, you stay with it and let it run its course. And for the people who are really good at feelings, then this comes in, is without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. And that's where the lady got into with the hunger, is that she, not to say that she shouldn't eat, but the thinking that it meant something, the thinking that it needed to be different. This is a problem. So it means simply to let the feeling be there and to focus on letting out the energy behind it. When letting go, ignore all thoughts. And this quote is from the book Letting Go by David Hawkins, who is passed on now maybe 10 years, but very high soul. And he has, uh, through COVID, he was my teacher. I read all of his books, I do believe. Maybe not all, but almost all of his books. Okay? So that's the second doorway. Let go and release what doesn't serve. The third doorway then is to love yourself. And that's a leap. But then the goal is to keep releasing until you love yourself. And it doesn't mean, well, it ultimately means unconditionally, but just loving yourself through the letting go and releasing. That's a big stage. And then you live in the moment. So if you live in the moment, then you love yourself. It's the same. How do you love yourself? By letting go and releasing what doesn't serve. And some of the things we do may still serve us, and that's okay. But there are usually things that we're doing that aren't really serving us. And the invitation here is to let go and release those things. How do we know what to let go? We do that by learning to observe. Life will tell us what we need to let go.
Oh, it's so much information. It's so good. There's so much to unpack. Um, so that piece about letting the emotions come up, letting them release, letting without judging, without trying to change them, that I find for myself, for my clients, is like a pivotal thing. Like that really is important, but I feel like a lot of people get hung up on that part. Um, and it's a big question, how how would you say step one, if someone is all caught up in their emotions, doesn't know how to stop being caught up in them and influenced by them and judging them, what would your suggestion be for someone trying to detach from that?
Well, you've got quite a bit of planetary reason. So, I mean, that may be a good place to start. When you can see it physically, then that really helps. But I think the thing is that you can't judge yourself. You can't belittle yourself. I think the thing is that you go from being unawares, teens, 20, early 20s, 25s. The pain of 28 is, oh my God, everybody's putting my laundry in my face, you know?
Very true. Very true.
Okay. So then I get the laundry in the face at 28, and then at 32 to 35, you begin to not need the laundry. You don't need to do that. You get enough objectivity about it, and so as you get starting getting objectivity about it, then it becomes a process of doing it quicker. It's like you can get it a year later, you notice it, and then you get it a month later, and then you get it a week later. You understand, you the when you do it, it takes a year, and then you realize, oh my God, I did. There's my
Yes.
laundry again. Then it's a month later. Oh my God, I did it again. Then a week later. Then a day later. Then an hour later, and then ultimately it's like, I don't want to do that. I'm about to step in quicksand again, and it takes a really trial and error number of times to relearn those behaviors, to recognize them as what they are, and so there's a reason why people are doing that. It isn't while it's how do I want to say this, while not everybody is going to do the same thing. Everybody's got I think it comes back to the astrology, is that it's an imprinting, and everybody's got lessons. That's the universal, but not everybody has the same lessons. And so there is a patterning that you see in astrology. You do enough readings. It's not to say that you're not going to see something you've never seen before, but I mean, it gets pretty obtuse, and that generally the patterning that you see, you've seen a version of it before,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you're going to go to if you've heard, one of the things I say is I don't care why anymore, but if you want to go play why, I go back to the story that I like to say to people, and this there's a relief after this. So I think people like this. And nobody's really said anything, but everybody seems to like it. So I get to a place where I say, well, look, okay, it's like we've been sitting in talking about shitty stuff for 2 hours. It's like, look, okay, wait a minute, let's take a time out. Okay, let's say that, let's back off here. Let's get a bigger picture. Let's say that if we're spirit, and we come into the body. Okay, let's say that in the pre-spirit phase, that I mean, the human mind wants to anthropomorphize this, and we see an astral kitchen table, and we're sitting there with an angel, or we're sitting there with God, and we've been called in, and I think of it. I am not really up in that movie, but what's the movie with the Matrix? I think there was
Right.
a place where there was a grandmother or something that was like
Something.
the
Yes. Uh huh.
so that kind of a person. It's like we're sitting down. I think it's in that movie. Maybe
I
that's
think
where
it
I
is.
got
I
this
think I know what you're
idea
talking
from.
about.
Yeah. So we're sitting down, and the mentor, or God says, it's, how you doing? I'm doing fine. Well, it's kind of time for another life. Oh, okay. God says, well, "What do you think for this time?" And we say, "Gee, I don't know." Well, God says, "You remember last time?" Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Oh yeah, I remember that. Well, how about we put the shoe on the other foot this time?
Right.
You didn't you didn't you made fun of emotional people, and you made fun of indecision, and you made fun of, so let's just to balance out here a little bit, let's give you the da 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 da. So, oh, okay, sure, yeah, with your fingers crossed. Sounds great. Can hardly wait. So, so I like to think of it in that way, and then it's not so personal.
And that helps with the detaching, the putting, being the audience and not in the movie of your life.
Yes, yeah, yes, I'm sure it happens. Um, Sure, it affects all of those things. Yes, absolutely, that's part of it. You get the bigger picture. You get out of the impersonality. You get some detachment. It's all yeah. It's all WD-40.
Another thing you speak a lot about that I've seen is finding clarity, and how clarity is not a mental process. That is a gut process. Um, and that to me was a something I hadn't really thought of. I'm a very kind of mental person. I do a lot of thinking, and so uh, finding clarity is an intuition, a feeling. Um, could you speak on that a little bit? That fascinates me.
Sure. The thing was, my experience when I was traveling overseas, I had to plan the trips for the plane tickets, because I either price wise, or even a seat on the plane wise, I had to kind of plan it out. But I got good at it. I worked up to it, and I could go to a new city that I'd never been to before, and I might plan 4 or 5 nights. And it was very, because the because of there weren't so many choices, and everything had to be really color coded. Was that, I might land on a different day, so I had to make sure everything was really lined up. But anyways, so I might finish a city in 3.5 days, and I got an extra day, and so I liked it. So I developed, around 20 years ago, I developed the situation is, well, do I want to have tea, which I don't actually enjoy drinking? Do I want to go to the river? Do I want to go to a museum? Do I want to go to sleep? Do I want to go back to somewhere? What do I want to do? And there were so many choices, and and no history, because I've never been in the city before. History in the sense that I've been a traveler, but and so I developed that the I developed the ability to I would just quiet my mind. Now the thing is I don't think you can stop the mind from thinking, but by ignoring it, you can definitely quiet it, and it's not a simple thing. I mean, it takes a lot of practice, but you can quiet it, and by ignoring it, um, it will eventually quiet. Though it will throw its best stuff at you for a long time until you aren't susceptible to it. Okay. So the thing is that I wanted to feel in my gut what I wanted to do. That I wasn't trying to figure out um uh, in the head, because I couldn't pro and con. I wanted to know, what was it I wanted. What would you have another half a day in Phnom Penh? What do you want to do? And so I would sit there, and I put no. There was no, oh my God, it's 3 minutes. It was just, and it might take 20 or 30 minutes, but eventually it became a feeling of the museum or the river. That's what I want to do. And I didn't. The thing is that where that comes from, you never worry about right and wrong. With the head, there's always a second guessing. And so I don't, you don't second guess the gut because it just is what it is. And that's what you felt like doing. You can't argue. I mean, who are you going to, what are you arguing with? You know, fate. So there's no right or wrong. So I just learned to be really particular about waiting until I just felt it. And I actually was given a practice years later. I was with a group that was very intuitional in nature, and they're one of the things that they were promoting was the idea of that you figure out where you want to go eat and what do you want to go eat. You don't mentally do it, but you figure it out and you wait until, and with a number of people, you wait till everybody gets the same signal. They were trying to do a group thing. Everybody gets the same signal that that's the right place. So that was kind of interesting, but I was doing a version of that already with this particular process. Is that you have more? Does that answer some?
I think that answers it pretty well. It does, yes.
Well, let's start off with astrology because the thing is that I'm a rebel. I had a I don't pretty much do anything like anybody. So what it took was to um you have to not be such a joiner that you get a lot of group think. With astrology, I like to say because I do Facebook a lot with astrology, and people will say, I really want to get into astrology. What do you recommend? What's the best way? That's just the best way. It's sort of, that's ridiculous. But so what I suggest is that you read every book you can for 2 to 5 years, and then you take every rule that you've learned and you throw them out.
I love it. And that goes back to the intuition and the trusting and those things. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the thing is what is the energy of the planet, not what is the rule of the planet. And the problem is that there has been an incredible amount of, I call it billable hours, just like lawyers, is that if the astrologer is there for the family and the marriages, uh, it's like being a census worker. There isn't much work. So the astrologer found out that if they could create billable hours, if they could create a problem, then they could then be on the forefront of finding a solution. And so the Pluto square got invented. The Pluto square didn't get invented, of course, until Pluto was what, 1732, or was it 1841? Uh, I think, yeah, 1730. I think 32. I think they were found in the opposite order. I think Pluto was first, but I might be wrong. But anyways, the ancients had it. They didn't have Pluto square, but they had something else that you got to be on the watchful eye for. I don't really believe any of that. I don't actually believe. I don't work with aspects, and the reason I don't work with aspects is because I like to say this is a question. I'm going to ask you this question. The question is, if your neighbor makes noise and it disturbs you, whose fault is it?
Amazing question. Because it's absolutely your fault. It's absolutely
Okay,
your fault.
so the thing is that when you're in your early 20s and your neighbor makes noise, it's really good for you to go over there and rip them a new one, because you're standing up for yourself and you really need to. But you realize that ultimately, while there is noise or not is noise, ultimately that your peace depends on your own self. And so the reason this is an important question, do you know the maybe you've heard me say this before, but the reason why it's an important question is because everybody wants to put the emphasis on the Pluto square. The problem isn't the Pluto. The
Right.
problem is what's squared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see how that relates.
And so the thing is that what you get down to is the most basic part of astrology uh, has been completely lost, and that is the dignity of the planet, which is the quality of the energy of the planet based on the sign that it's in. Okay, and so that the planets that are in so it goes exalted, which is its favorite or own, then great friend, neutral. Neutral is fine. There's nothing wrong with neutral. Great debilitate, excuse me, enemy, then great enemy, and then debilitated. And those are the least favorites. And so what happened for me, going back to a moment,
Hmm.
now that I have your question in my mind. So the moment was that when I had a teacher, I had a very esoteric teacher who taught me how enneagram and astrology work together, and he told me that the we compensate for the energy of the in the planet, and so strong planets are or high energy planets. Planets are neither good nor bad. Planets are either strong energy or weak energy, or high energy or low energy. High energy means that the energy of the planet is very accessible to us, and so it becomes a skill, or it becomes a strength, or the energy of the planet. Well, the planet can be neutral energy, in which case it's neutral. Neutral's fine. It's not where we live out of. It's an also run. It's not that important. Not to say that it's not that important. It can be very important for other people, and it becomes more important when it becomes important for your partner, or
Right.
as either strong or weak. But so in interaction with other people, but on our own, neutral is not really a problem. And then on the weak side, enemy, a great enemy, or debilitated being its least favorite place, um, we compensate for the energy of the planet in our behavior.
Okay. 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 Yeah, that makes sense. That's a lot for me to mull over in my mind. So, what would be an example that people don't think about as a planet maybe in a strong position or a weak position? Kind of how that would manifest.
Well, how it manifests is that let me see how I want to say this. Let me back up and repeat it again.
Sure.
Okay. So the nature of it is that planets are neither good nor bad. There isn't any somebody in location astrology, somebody told me recently or wrote me, I think, or maybe it was a post line, and they said that no, I was in a reading. Somebody said to me that Jim Lewis, who was the founder of astrocartography, said that you should never live by a Mars line. And I said that's and he, they said I said that's ridiculous. They said, what do you think of that? I said that's ridiculous. You can't. There's no never. You want to get energized, go live by a Mars line. Can it be warlike and can it be intense? Well, yeah, maybe so, but to never live by it is ridiculous. It's ridiculous on foundational basis that that's not the way the planets work, that the planets are, they incline, they don't compel. And so the fact is that they have strong natures, which are our skills on the high side, and they have weak natures, which are our weakness and our compensation in our behavior. That's what causes obsessions and compulsions, is that the planets are weak, and then we start Venus comparing with other people. We stop being expansive Jupiter. We get afraid to do Mars. We get paralysis. We either are shy to communicate or over communicate Mercury. We Mars, what else? Moon, too emotional. Sun, low side, low self-esteem, diminishing of self. Saturn, critical. fearful, judgmental. They all have an incredibly ugly side, and God bless them. It's not the planet.
No, no. I mean, any energy can be in balance or out of balance, pretty much in any kind of situation. And so that applies to
Absolutely.
astrology too.
That's it. And so we have to get all of the ideas of the rules out of the way because they limit us into thinking good and bad, right and wrong. They limit our duality. They're not very 5D. That thinking is not very 5D. In fact, it's the antithesis of 5D. And it's also the antithesis of intuition, which I think was you were asking me about that before. Is and so, but the thing is that they have very a clear we have a very clear ball field. The thing is the basketball court has got lines, the hockey rink has walls, the and so what we have is that we have these 9 planets. I don't use the outer planets. We use K2, Rahu and K2, north and south node of the moon in Vedic astrology as planets, but the 9 planets, and um, planets are like verbs. They're qualities of energy. They're ways of acting. They're Jupiter's expansion. Moon is emoting. Saturn is focus and discipline. Mars is activity. Venus is integrity. And integrity may be a noun, but there's a verb of living in integrity. Maybe I'm making that up. But anyways, they're like verbs, the planets. The houses are like nouns. They're qualities of energy. Excuse me, they're places in our life. Nouns, houses. Career, 10th house. Relationship, 7th house. Fifth house, creativity. And then the signs are like adjectives. They're qualities of energy, and they're fiery, earthy, airy, and watery. And it's a total um, um, ball juggling. This is the palette. These are the main uh, items on the palette of the astrologer: houses, signs, and planets. And they are like, I like to say, they're like the old clue game. It's deductive reasoning. Colonel Mustard did it in the living room with the candlestick. Saturn in the fifth house in Aries. What does it mean? It's an implication. It's not a compelling. It's an implication, and the implication is when the planets are cuspy, retrograde, debilitated, they're squeakers, and our behaviors are the results of that squeaking, and we can undo that. We can undo it like pickup sticks. We used to play pickup sticks. The girls and the boys played pickup sticks in fourth grade in the 50s. And, it's like just, one by one getting them off. And that's the goal of the tool, rather than the idea of being put in a place that you're screwed, that I'm doomed, that I'm, cursed. I'm not really. I don't want to consider they're cursed and blessings. This is a curse and a blessing, and I don't think it's a curse in the sense that you may use that word, but I just think it's a bit of a setup, and it's here to teach us something. That's how it releases.
Mm-hmm. That putting the nouns, verbs, adjectives, my brain just loved that so much. Like that just fit into my little mind so well. That was a great explanation. What else about astrology would you want to speak on?
Well, I think I'm going to just touch into the idea that um, astrology isn't wrong. I mean, astrology has been banned for thousands of years. There's nothing new that to think bad of astrology. In fact, it's old as the sun, practically. But the thing is that I didn't really have a horse in the race. But what I came to realize is that I noticed the patterns is that things get manipulated, things get changed, things get misunderstood. There was I can't think of the person exactly who it was in the Greek time 2,000 years ago, but the whole key at the time was, does the sun circle the earth or does the earth circle the sun?
Mm-hmm.
And they in what we believe now is that the earth circles the sun, that they in believing something that wasn't true, they came up with these 57 epicycles, in a way to describe something that wasn't actually true. And I want to say, I got to tell you, I think I learned a fact. I don't know if this is true, but I learned, I saw there was a map that they showed of the cycles of Mercury retrograde. And every time Mercury came retrograde, it came between the Earth and the Sun. And so I have not checked this out, but I do believe that retrograde is because the illusion is created because the planet is between the Earth and the Sun. And talk about a retrograde of sun's energy, that the planet is blocking the sun's energy. And if you
Yes.
think about that energetically, not about rules, but energetically, what that could mean and how that could shake up and how you could go from two steps forward, one step back, to one step forward, two steps back. I mean, what else can you expect? And that on that level, that's the way that I came to understand the astrology, not necessarily all um, physically based, but energetically based, and rather than seeing it as an enemy that I had to make war with, as it just being a circumstance, and trying to understand how it manifests in our physical life. And the reality of it is, almost 1,500 readings in, is that it may not be true, but son of a gun, if I don't point out something based on a particular patterning of the planetary energies, that there is an incredible alignment every time.
I think a lot of people talk about astrology, oh, it doesn't make sense. That's not me. But they look at their sun sign, or they look at, just tropical astrology, or, there's so much more to the picture that I think a lot of people don't resonate with their sign, because there's more than just your sun or just your sun moon rising that can affect things. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in the astrology is not real, is because you only see the tiniest little glimpse. Do you feel like that's kind of true for some of the people you know?
Well, that's true, but I think the bigger thing is that there's a lot of astrologers who don't really know what they're talking about. I mean,
That
they
too.
they I
That
mean,
too.
I'm not to say that they don't have an idea and they don't express it well, and it may have some validity. Everything is true. I like to say that when you're talking about astrology books, that every book contains truth, but no book is 100% true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so the misconceptions of the people who are experts in it is not helpful to the modality.
I agree. I agree. Myself have only been working with astrology for 7 or so years, and I don't know the first thing about it. And I don't think anyone ever knows the whole picture. No one ever knows everything there is to know with astrology. You can always learn more.
Well, absolutely, and it was really, it took 40 years, more than 40 years for me to have the breakthrough that I was wanting the first week.
Learning astrology is such a commitment. I don't know if I could ever. I probably will never call myself an astrologer. That is a lot of dedicated work. I do really appreciate your pointing out that astrology is not a curse or a necessarily a blessing. It's we're not victims to the cycles of the stars. We are just aware of the energies, and I feel like astrology shouldn't be taken as like a bad omen, more of just like a okay, that's something to be aware of. Um, do you agree with that?
Yeah, you could call it a compass. You could call it a North Star. You could call it whether it's a blueprint or an X-ray. It's a there's you can use it as guidance. Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I do want to say that that we are both. The free will question. We are both, tied into the cycles of the planets and also free of them. That there are like it's not going to be light at night when it's, no moon. I mean, it's just going to be that way, and it's going to be hot all summer here, and we won't see many clouds. It's just mostly going to be that way. And so but within that, we have, I don't have to be outside in it all the time. I could be inside in it. And I'm
Absolutely.
not so hot, and I could turn on the fan, and it's not such an affecting me. So it's a maze that we have to learn that there is a reality where we don't feel we have any control, and then we think that we're free because we feel we have complete control, and then we realize we're kind of a wet noodle, and we realize that we don't have any control, and it's okay. I don't need any control.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be able to, in letting go, to be able to adapt and feel present with whatever is coming down, without the need to that whatever comes down is okay.
Finding peace in having little to no control can be really, really hard for some people, but in my own life, hitting that threshold of realizing there's no control and just letting it go, stop trying, release it, and just find peace in just being, has been a beautiful and freeing, and also a little bit scary at times, but it's been a life changing, honestly, to just be okay with not having that control, just being okay with it.
And that will be continually tested.
Absolutely. As always, we never. I think that's probably an astrology thing as well. Uh, Learning lessons and then revisiting them and revisiting them and relearning
Yeah,
them.
there's always a deeper level.
And so I know you also work with enneagrams, and it's so interesting that we would talk about this when we did, because I've started working with an advisor who's been teaching me and learning about enneagrams, particularly for like planning and getting your life together on the line of time and those kind of things. Um, so, if you wouldn't mind just giving a real quick explanation of what an enneagram is and how you use them.
Sure. So I can give you relatively quick. So the Enneagram is a Greek term. The teaching has nothing to do with Greece, but it's a Greek term that means nine-sided figure, and it's a combination of three geometric shapes that has 9 points. We can put anything at the points, but there was 60 years ago they put personalities at the points, and it became the Enneagram of personality. The teaching is that there are 9 personality types. One of them is at our core, and that it's how we relate to life. And the thing about it is that the patterning is so strong that the by understanding your Enneagram story, you can release the patterning because you realize that everybody's doing it, and it's a natural reaction. It's your natural reaction to life coming at you.
And so, how do you relate an enneagram to astrology? Because I find this fascinating.
Okay, well, each of the 9 points. I was, it's interesting because I usually go through the 9 points, and I was thinking, well, no, we can go to this other question. But the reality of it is that I have to give the answer to that question.
I
Is that
love
they're
thorough
nine?
answers. Let's go.
Okay. So the reality of it is that there's these 9 types, and they're a little bit like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. They're not the same story, but they have their own versions that way. And so there are nine. So the way this works is that there are three core instincts or centers of intelligence. That is anger, emotion, and fear. And while we have all three of them in us, one of them is at our core. Now there is in addition, each one has a extroverted, introverted, and neutral way of expressing itself. Okay. Extroverted means that they go towards energy. Introverted means that they pull back from energy. And the active neutral strategy in for the anger, I want to repeat it again so you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Anger, emotion, and fear, the three core instincts. The neutral type is the uh, oh, let me think of the phrase, the quality control. The threes make sure that things are that things are productive. The nines make sure that things are safe, and the sixes make sure that things are safe, and the nines make sure that there's peace. Okay, that's the neutral version, and so we use numbers in the enneagram. They also have names, but we don't agree on the names. So we use a number. There's no hierarchy, and so eight, nine, and ones are the anger types. Eight being the assertive type. It's called the boss. It's the most strongest. I call it all offense, no defense. What they're defending is they have a teddy bear in their heart, and they don't want anybody to know because they need to have that strength out there, not weakness. And so that's all offense. That's the boss. That's Jack Nicholson. Nine is the peacemaker. They are anger neutral. They merge with other people. They're the peacemaker. They accommodate other people. They're so sweet to be with. Julie Roberts, I think, right, is the writer name. That's her
Yeah.
name.
Mhm.
She's a nine. And Jennifer Aniston. Just love to have these people over for tea. That's the nines. The ones are the inward anger. That's the perfectionist. They are they have rules. Things have to be done the right way. They feel deficient within themselves, and so they need things to be done the right way in order to make their world less frustrated and resentful. Okay, so those are the three. Any questions on any of that? In
No, no, I
particular, the anger types.
that's very well explained. I can already see the astrology connecting. I'm so interested. I'm ready.
Okay, so then we have the image types or the emotion types. Image types is that the something happens. The anger types put their anger out toward something. The fear types pull back, and then the image types look around to see how they should react. They base their reactions on how other people react. Two is the helper. They help other compulsively help other people create codependent relationships in order to feel needed and feel worthy of being loved. That's the two outward. That would be the outward type. The three is the producer. They produce and achieve for self-worth. They're the neutral type. And then four is the individualist. They're the inward type. They're the most beautiful that don't think they're beautiful. They're the most talented. They're the creative people. Uh, Four, and then you get to the fear types. Five is interior fear. This is the observer. They get catastrophically depleted around other people, and so they really limit their exposure to the world and to themselves. They want to know, why are they mental types? So this is the fear types, the mental types. Why are they mental types? Because they need to know how things work. When they understand how things work, then they can feel secure. That's where their security is. Six is the loyalist. They are the most anxious all the time, always apprehensive about possible future events. They're looking for security and guidance. When they feel they have security and guidance, then they feel connected, and then they can leap the gorge of faith. There's no mental way to get there. You can't think your way out of this story. And then the seven is which is myself. I'm the enthusiast. We're the outward fear. We're the greener pastures guys. We'll tell you a little story. We'll entertain you for a while. We're ready to move on. We have trouble making commitments. It looks like we're running toward, but we're actually running from. So those are the nine types. Okay. You want to anything about that before I move on and put it with astrology?
The only thing I wanted to say is I did check myself a couple days ago, and I'm a four. I know I'm a four.
Hmm.
So that
Okay.
does resonate for sure.
Okay. So the four. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the possibilities. Um, well, let's start with the four. So the way that I've come down to explain it is that each grouping, okay, that's the anger types,
Mm-hmm.
the fear types, and the image or emotion body types, um, have two planets that we look to. They're usually triggered, okay, and occasionally can be exalted. It can be very strong. That can also be triggering. I didn't say this before, but now that we're getting into this, I want to give you this other piece. So I talked about the high side and the low side, but let me give you two more levels. There's the low side of the high side. This is when we get arrogant, okay, that we know better. That's the low side of the high side, that
Gotcha.
it's a real skill. And then we say, what do you mean you don't get it? Don't you see it's so easy? That's arrogance. That's the low side of the high side. And we can have a high side of the low side is when in anger we communicate, we yell. That's more energy than being shy. That's more energy than lying. I mean, when you get it out emotionally and you put emotion into it, and don't you understand it, and you did this, that's it's not communicating, but it's a heck of a lot better than sitting there like a bump on the log. And so I call that the high side of the low side. And so there's these qualities of energies. And so we look for now for the anger triad, 8, 9, and 1, we look towards Mars and Sun. We
Okay.
find, not surprisingly, we look to anger, we look to Mars, and we look to Sun as a self-expression. And so the eight becomes very confident in themselves and is very assertive. That's the eight. That's a strong Mars and a strong Sun. And then the nine and the one have weak Mars. Quite often it'll be in the 12th house for both of them. I can't find my anger. That's the nine and the one, and I don't know who I am. The nine, I don't know who I am. I'm disconnected from myself. That's a very a lost sun. It can be South Node in the first house, or then or then the or then the one, which has a stronger sun because they are clear in themselves as to having an opinion, but they are attached to those opinions that they have to do things the right way, and so it's also afflicted. It's a combination of a Sun and Mars. Now that is for the that's for the anger types. For the image types, it's Sun and Venus. It's a Venus is the integrity on the high side, and judgments and comparisons and blaming and self-righteous and judgmental and on the low side. And Sun, as I don't feel secure within myself, I look to other people to find who I am because I don't feel secure enough in myself, and that's uh, expressed astrologically by Sun Venus. And then the third one then is for the fear types, for the mental types, 5, 6, and 7, we're looking at Mercury and Saturn. Saturn being fear, it being a fear type, and Mercury being mental. I mean, it's like a slam dunk when you think about it. I mean, what else could it be, right? So so that is, we looked at that for the for telling us the triad that it's in. Then each planet has its own markers that are related to its particular story, the way it manifests, and within that, some planets will be stronger. For example, Jupiter for a 7 is the closest one to one that a strong Jupiter, or even a debilitated Jupiter, but Jupiter, if Jupiter is a big story, then and you got Saturn and Mercury going on, then most likely that you're looking at a 7. That's one of the most direct relationships between and it isn't a one to one, but that is one that is mostly that way. Now fives have diminished moons. They don't feel their moon. They feel unemotional. They disconnect. They disengage. And how do they do that? Well, they have a weak moon, and so they're very dry. Their body is dry. They're not very curvy. They're very thin. They can have an elegance. The 5 ladies have an elegance about them, but it's a thin, and it's a the story is thin. I could have catastrophic depletion because I could be blown away because I don't have those, the big Mars and the big moon and the, to ground me. I'm wistful in my planetary periods, and so you can see that in the chart. So
So interesting.
fours have a thing that nobody else has. It's their uh, I was going to say it's their devil's knot. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it's push pull. That they have push pull in their chart. That they want it, they don't want it. That it is and it isn't. That it's available yet it isn't available. And so that is you recognize this, huh? So it's a
Absolutely.
and you can probably describe it better than I can. Would you describe push pull?
Yes, it's kind of like I'm never set in one decision. I'm never set on a certain kind of feeling or what. I'm so wishy-washy is kind of how I've been described. Sometimes I feel one way and then I think about it for a little while. I feel it out and then I feel another way. Kind of just in all areas. Absolutely.
So you feel it out and then you think. So is it feeling or thinking? That's the problem. The push pull is that I have an indication that it can be this way, and I have an indication it can be that way, and it push pulls me. It's the only one that has this push pull, and it's astronomically set. So what would it be? So it would be, you asked me for examples before. So it would be like Mars and Pisces. That's a push pull. That I want to, it's like I want to start walking, but I'm on ice and I'm slipping, and it's like it's a push pull. And there are so many different ways that this could be described. Fours, not all fours have this, but I've noticed recently in the pattern is that that fours will have Sun and Saturn conjunct, and they'll have it in an important house. Of course, it's Sun and Saturn, but there'll be other planets around it. And Sun and Saturn is a tremendous push pull just by its nature. Jupiter and Saturn are push pulls also. So there's a push pull in Jupiter Saturn that can play out. But this Sun Saturn push pull is very fourish in that I can see all sides, but is it my mind, maybe my mind thinks one way and my gut says another, and because I'm not grounded enough in my own thinking, that I'm emotional based is that it's a slippery slope, and I can't make a decision where other people who are not fours won't have that lubricated emotional planets, Vaseline emotional planets, that they can't grab onto them, that they're more firm, that instead of being Mars just as it's a month later and it born a month later, and now Mars is in Aries, and it's like it's no problem. Or maybe it's 4 days later to get it into Mars in Aries. It's a complete different problem. So
Um, what is that? You have cardinal signs and talking of tropical astrology. You have cardinal and
you have cardinal energy, you have fixed energy, and mutable energy.
almost like most of my signs are very mutable, and I've had astrologers point to that with the always being shifting and never solid and things, but I am a very ungrounded person. I am very ungrounded. I have a constant grounding practice, and it's never yeah, absolutely.
So that's basically how it works. Is that each enneagram has a astrological vibration that it fits into, that I learned 25 years ago, and I'm still learning. And it's satisfying to be at this level because it was a search. It didn't take very long, but it was a search. And then once I found somebody who can explain it to me, then the unwrapping of all of that is this, like Saturn Sun for fours is, like last week. It's like, I've seen it now. I've seen it too many times. Not to say, again, not to say that everybody with Saturn Sun is a four, but it does play out in this push pull, that most fours have this push pull in their life. Well, the thing is that the most important thing is the yugas. You talked about the cycle of the planets. So the thing is the yugas. The yugas are the when since we already got our heads in the galaxies, we may as well juice it up a little bit more. So the
Love it.
teaching is, they call it the yugas in India. In Greece, they called it the Great Year, the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. In India, it's Sat Yuga, the Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga being the densest age. Everybody thinks we're in Kali Yuga. My teacher says we've left Kali Yuga. We're in Dwapara Yuga. It's really clear to all of his disciples, and not so clear to anybody else. This is the death throes of this greed and authoritarianism and the density. Now, density has a powerful place in our lives. Density is, I like to give the story that we're in heaven. Again, we're in heaven, and somebody says to us, you get jealous, and you say, "What are you talking about? I'm up here in heaven. I don't attach to I'm not attached to anything." And so then you fast forward to your life, and your ex-partner is walking away holding the hand of your best friend, and jealousy and envy have totally new meanings, and that the physical plane, the density of the physical plane, creates roses and creates beauties and sunsets, but within that density is the so obvious, even I got it, that all of our fears and all of our grief and obsessions and compulsions and samskars and karma are there to right in our face, and that here we can see it like nowhere else. But within the Yuga system is the idea that we're now in Dwapara Yuga, started 1900. The year 1900 was predicted in 1894 to say that we're in a 2,000-year cycle called Dwapara Yuga, where I like to say I found this picture of this lady was 5 weeks pregnant, and she was sticking her stomach out, and you didn't see anything. Okay, so the thing is that if you take a 2,000 year cycle, we're 125 years. We're not even, based on 9 months. We're not even 2 weeks pregnant. We don't even know we're pregnant yet, let alone 5 weeks where we don't even show, but we're sticking our stomach out for comparison. We're 2 weeks. We don't have a clue that what's going on. And in that, I think that it's the dinosaurs, the death dance of the dinosaur, greed, authoritarianism, control, uh, you know, is leaving. It's becoming embarrassing because it just isn't a way to live anymore over a long cycle. I'm not saying since last month or last year. I'm saying I can take 50, I know 55 years since 1970 when I first saw natural food stores and natural as a way to live. Organic. Organic was brand new when I moved to California in 1970. And I've seen it grow to where yoga studios are everywhere in the world. And so I call that Dwapara Yuga. I don't think it has anything to do with the age of Aquarius. I think the age of Aquarius is way overblown. First of all, I don't think it even starts for a few hundred years. But the thing that nobody talks about is that the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, the nature of those ages, there's no hierarchy in its nature. There is a different flavor, but there is no reason that Aquarius could be a higher age than Pisces. But there is a reason why Drupara is a higher age than Kali Yuga.
Right, right. Yes.
That's the confusion, that has been put on the age of Aquarius.
That's so interesting. I also have not resonated with the Age of Aquarius idea. I wasn't too sure about it, and that was my little confirmation that there's something up with that.
So the yugas is what put it all together for me. That when I thought of it in terms of mind-body connection, I thought in terms of yoga. I like to say that Henry VIII didn't say to one of his wives, "Let's have a universal healthcare day down in the village Tuesdays and Thursdays." It wasn't that time, but it is now. So universal healthcare is a very Dwapara Yuga energy type of idea, and that we are that life is changing rather fast in its slow way. Uh, um, to being more conscious, and 3,000-year-old feng shui and vastu and yoga, all this stuff is coming back from the previous ages as we're rising to a higher age from descending Dwapara Yuga. There's a descending cycle that changed at 500 AD. Now the ascending cycle, and these things are coming back. Well, how are they mysteriously coming back? Well, when you think of it this way, it's not mysterious at all. It's very natural. So I think this is the most important aspect of it. And when I understood this part, then everything came together, and that I saw that what I was doing with astrology and enneagram, for that matter, and the other modalities that I use, that I was that what was being given to me was a way to look at them in a Dwapara Yuga way of a higher vibration, that rather than limiting us, they help to define us in order to be able to let go of the limitations.
I think that's such a beautiful perspective. I think that's how we should view modalities like this, um, as a tool to figure out how to better understand and work with ourselves and our own natural way of being. Um, it helps you find self-compassion in my experience, and I think that's a beautiful way to look at it.
Self-compassion for me is fourth house. People that have an empty fourth house have trouble with self-compassion, and you do. So that's what you have to learn: is self-compassion and vulnerability.
It's always been a battle of self-compassion, and it's always been that push and pull of too much vulnerability versus not enough. That's definitely where I've always been.
I think, without trying to analyze you, I think that vulnerability, that I think that there's a vulnerability that's beneath that. I don't think what your vulnerability doesn't have an on-off switch.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so I think it's a little pre-vulnerability. It's a controlled vulnerability that what what I'm talking about and what you're talking about. I think it's a little bit different, and I'm not judging you as much as trying to
No,
say. And
yeah.
if it's not you, then I'm saying that there's a bit of a controlled vulnerability that comes at 32, 34, 36, when you realize I wasn't really that vulnerable. I was running a game of the story of vulnerability, not vulnerability.
It kind of, being 32 this year, it feels like a toddler trying to figure out how to have a conversation with other toddlers of this vulnerability thing where other people can just do it, and I'm trying to perform and pretend, and like, how am I supposed to do this? It is practice vulnerability and not like actual full vulnerability. That's been just the past year tapping into like, oh, oh, I never knew what it was to be vulnerable. I was
Uh-huh.
trying.
Well, beautiful. We do the best we can at each stage.
Absolutely. I think
And there's
the
nothing wrong with being at any stage. It's just where we're at. It's just the place that's the current right now, and the it's tremendous freedom to me in that it changes. I love impermanence. You talk about empowerment. Impermanence means that things will change. I don't have to be responsible for it. Yes, does it mean I have to shirk, my own story, and it doesn't mean I can't work on myself. But I just let go of the world situation, and the world the way that it is, and let go of all of it is just outside me, part of me, but outside me.
beautiful, beautiful. That's true. Yeah. This is just actually a selfish question for that, building the vulnerability piece. 32, 33, 34 year. What about that self-compassion? Is that about the same? Because I myself personally have developed the self-compassion a lot quicker, a lot earlier. I wouldn't say quicker, earlier.
Um, my guess is that it also has a story.
Probably. Definitely. The things are
Uh,
so complex and so layered.
yeah, you seem wise beyond your years, but I would say I said this to I think I said this to somebody in my last reading. I seem to remember saying this anyways, or having this thought. If I can pull it back together, is that she was running some pride, and pride was is that she couldn't really see it, and she'd say, "Oh yes, I see." I'd say, we don't really, we got this pride and we can't really trust it. And for the two is pride. For the four, for the two is pride and shame. For the four, it's shame, and so the shame blocks us from being able to see the different levels. And and the Venus wants to make it right, so it'll put the makeup on it, and lipstick on a pig. I'm not making you.
I know exactly what you mean. Trying to make a crappy situation look really nice.
Yeah. So the thing is that what I'm doing is I'm just squeezing your hand here a little bit to say you're 32. The thing is that the height of arrogance is 35. I don't want to. I said I don't want to trust your. I suggest to you to not trust your opinions. Okay.
Yeah. I have
Okay.
learned. I have learned that those are not always
Yeah.
correct. Absolutely.
So if you got a little high horse, I'm not saying that you don't deserve a high horse. I'm not saying that there may not, reality, but the high horse is better to wait until you're uh the high horse is never good to get on because we're always going to get kicked down. And so I'm trying to just gently nudge the idea here is that I think that they will continue to be lessons and that the two are tied in and that they what they have to do with your grounding in yourself. And when you're grounded in yourself, then you can feel vulnerability and you can feel self-compassion. This is maybe what you were looking for. And that when you're not grounded in yourself, then whether you're either one has a lack of vulnerability or a lack of self-compassion, or the story of self-compassion or the story of vulnerability, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that in the grounding there's no need to even go there.
That resonates for sure. When
they're,
I
they're
find
just
myself grounded and very true and firm in myself, things are so much easier. All of those things. It feels natural rather than kind of performative or like panicky, what am I doing kind of thing. Yeah, yeah.
yes. Yeah. And in that, then vulnerability and self-compassion disappear because you just live them without needing to attain them.
It's very true. That's very true. I can see that play out over and over. But I think that is such an important thing to realize about learning lessons over and over and over. I think we don't ever fully learn a lesson. You learn a lesson and then you move on to the next class and you learn it in a different way, in a different level, in a different situation. No lesson is ever fully learned. There's always more to learn in everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There's always levels, and the thing is, you can get caught at any level. Is that now I've got it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, you learn the lesson once and then you did learn the lesson, but now it's time to buckle up and go on to the next class and learn it again.
Well, I mean, the example is easy. Arithmetic. I remember learning division in fourth grade, and then we learned fractions in fifth grade. And I remember we started geometry at whatever grade, and then algebra, whatever grade, and on to calculus. Every year has its own theme, but it's still called math. And so we can still call it vulnerability, but it's like, whoa, the vulnerability of being 18 years old and being sensitive as a four and being 32 years old and being a woman of the world is very different, but it doesn't end.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that some people I've had to learn self-compassion around. Just because you're relearning a lesson does not mean you've not learned it before. You're just that's just life and that's just how things work. Yeah.
Beautiful.
How can people find you if they would like to reach out to you, learn about what you do?
So I have a website, indrarinzler.com. It's all one word. I have Facebook, Indra Rinzler, under there that you can see there where I sometimes post and have different things there. You can go back through my mind there and see what's there. I offer readings and different kinds of readings aligned to help you to find to help you to align with your higher self. I believe that's what astrology is about, is alignment with the higher self, and that's what I'm sharing. And I offer to your readers, to your listeners, two free offers. If you email me indrarinzler@gmail.com. Again, all one word with nothing in between. I'll send you your chart and a crib sheet so that you can read it a little bit. It's not a reading, but you can get your chart. I'm a Vedic astrologer, which we didn't touch, but I'm a Vedic astrologer, the astrology of India, the sidereal chart. If you'd like that, I can send that to you, and I'll also send you. So send me your birth date, time, and place. I need the three things: birth date, time, and place. Email me. And then the other offer is the enneagram test. If you want, send me your email me and ask for the enneagram test, and I'll send you a 5 or 10 minute enneagram test to get you started in figuring out your point. And then from there, the you've opened the Pandora's box.
That sounds amazing. I will link everything you said. All your links will be down in the description wherever we're posted, wherever you're watching. Thank you so much for coming and joining me. This has been enlightening and so fun.
Thank you so much for having me, Alice. Much love and blessings to you.
You as well. Thanks so much for watching this interview. Remember to send that email to Indra to get your free charts. The information is right in the description. It'll be the first thing. Send him some love and some gratitude. Check out his website. And if you'd like to learn how to work with the Enneagram to plan your life or your business using universal laws and a little bit of magic, the information for my teacher is down below as well. He is wonderful. And if you'd like to work with me, you can find that there too. Remember, be well, be kind, and may your curiosity for this world and the next never fade.